Daniel, you're up next.
How's it going, Bart?
How's it going? So you've got a hand here for us, Daniel?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so game is 510 at Bellagio.
At Bellagio. When was this played?
About a month ago, I was there for a WSOP right around the mystery bounty.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about like how the game was. And this is a 1500 cap, right? Is that right?
2,500 cap.
Oh, they changed it.
Yeah, it's been like that for maybe 7 or 8 months.
So they recently changed, because it used to be this was the only 510 game, I think, with a $1,500 cap,
Yeah.
which kind of reminded me of the Commerce setup. But now they've changed it to a $2,500 cap. That's kind of interesting. But they had other bigger no limit games going.
Yeah, I mean they have everything bigger is uncapped. So they have the 1020 upstairs, and then in Bobby's room, whatever they're running.
And what was your typical? Because I've looked on Bravo during the WSOP cash games, and I've seen a lot of 510 games going. What was the sort of lineup like between maybe like what you eyed as recreational versus, say, people playing for profit?
Yeah, so I mean, you can see it pretty well in like who has an MGM card and who's a guest. I think is a big key on that. I played I think 3 or 4 sessions, and I would say like 2/3 of the people are typical Bellagio 510 regs.
Okay,
And then a third of them are Rex. Some of them really splashy, some of them super passive. Obviously that's the varies.
was the game euroed up a little bit too?
No, I mean there were some like Mizregs.
Mizregs.
The guy was just complaining the whole time. There were mostly like younger regs, and those games play pretty tight.
Okay.
I think you can really benefit by just over aggressing in a lot of spots, and people pretty much have it when they
put pressure on it. Okay, so how deep are you here in this hand?
So I said this game's 510. Usually there's not a straddle one, but this hand there is.
Okay.
I am 3.7k effective with the main villain, and I cover the table. I have a little over 5.
So 3.7k effective. Hero has 5k. Talked about that a little bit earlier in this live stream. Sometimes in cap games, when you have a lot of chips, it can go towards your image. This is a pretty big cap, though. So if anyone ever can go on for 2,500. So the straddle is on, but it's not a mandatory straddle game, which definitely changes things. Just plus 10 from under the gun, or?
Yep.
Okay, so start us off. How did this hand go down?
All right, so I am under the gun with Jack of Hearts, Jack of Spades, and the suits become super relevant.
Jack of Hearts, Jack of Spades. Okay.
And I open to 50.
So you're to the left of the straddle.
Correct.
You opened to 50.
Yep.
Because it's 5, 10, 20. Sorry.
Yep.
I was like, what? To 50. It's 5, 10 plus 20. All right. So kind of small, right? Smallish.
The standard open in this game is 3 bigs. It's to 30. And when the straddle's on, people typically lower their raise size because a lot of these stacks then become like 100 big blinds effective, and you're playing, you 2.5x instead of.
All right. So hero goes to 50. Okay.
I get a lot of callers. Cutoff calls. Very loose, fishy player on the button calls, which becomes important. And then big blind calls, the straddler actually folds. Straddler does not complete. So.
Okay. So it's 4 ways.
Yep.
It's $200. Okay.
So flop comes King of Spades, Queen of Hearts, 10 of Spades.
King of Spades, Queen of Hearts, 10 of Spades, hero with Jack. So open-ended, right? With pocket jacks, but you're up against the cutoff, the button, and the big blind here. Okay.
I think that I'm checking close to 100. This multi-way out of position. Maybe I would check 100 if I was all the way first to act and there were 3 after me.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely with jacks, I'm checking.
So the big blind checks, right?
Right. Big blind checks to me.
Now, I don't know. I mean, is this
the board is advantageous for me? So
yeah, I mean, you have like sets here, and you have ace jack all the time. I mean, a lot of times the boards where you check 100 is like when the preflop raiser never can have the nut advantage.
A lot of my like deviations of how I normally play this hand come from what the button was doing, and he's where most of the money's coming from. I anticipated would overstab on this board with flush draws and weak top pairs, whatever. So
No, and that might be so. I'm just taking a small exception with saying check 100 on a board like this. Like, I mean, the theory says is that, there can be boards when especially when you're from out of position that favor the field callers where the early position player just doesn't have the nuts. But this is certainly not one of those boards because I think you have ace jack. So that's just that. I'm not going to get, of course, I mean, I'd probably check jack here too as well, like a lot of the time. I mean, there's, that's definitely not any type of mistake. Big blind checks, so hero checks, okay? Yep.
I think part of it is I might check some sets to check raise. It is part of what I was thinking.
That you might check some sets to check raise with a straight out there?
Yeah, if I run into ace jack when I have middle set, I still have middle set, top set, I still have redraw. But I just like checking and one, getting information, and two, being able to still have strong hands in my check line.
Well, if you were to check raise some sets here on this board, I wouldn't want to check raise pocket kings.
No, primarily queens. Yeah, primarily middle set.
So big blind checks, hero checks, okay?
It checks through on the flop.
Okay, so check.
Turn is the 9 of hearts.
All right, so you make a straight now. And there's a backdoor flush draw out there. King of spades, queen of hearts, 10 of spades, 9 of hearts, hero with jack of hearts, jack of spades.
Right, so two-tone.
Yep.
I have both of the flush draw suits.
Right.
So again, I actually think that normally it checks to me. And I think I would check this a lot.
Well,
but I didn't in this situation.
But you didn't. I mean, the thing about this is that, it's definitely hard to balance, I would say probably a range here of betting if you're just checking everything but a jack. Now, if you bet some like backdoor nut heart draws, like ace 5 of hearts or something like that, you can balance that with some value, with some jack X types of situations. I mean, kind of sounds to me like you're kind of setting this up where you thought the button was going to overstab. He didn't stab, but now if it gets checked to him, he might overstab, thinking that nobody has a jack when it gets checked to him. Or that's kind of the thinking?
I was more thinking at this point, I have a value hand. If he has two pair, if he has flush draws, I want to get value from him. I don't want it to check through now that the board got more connected.
Well, that in the fact that you were going to bet, but I was thinking about, I thought you were saying that I will check a lot of times here, but here I bet. Okay, so you bet.
I bet 120 into 200.
Hero bets 120. Okay.
Cutoff fold.
Mm-hmm.
Button call.
Button calls. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then big blind check raises to 750.
Whoa. And what's the deal with the big blind?
Big blind had only been playing with him. So big blind's the main villain. Had only been playing with him for 30, 45 minutes. Young guy, had no reads. Found out after a little while that he was like a typical Bellagio reg. But at the time he was, drinking, socializing, blah, blah, blah. So I thought he might have been a little, well,
that's an interesting little quirk here that you add. Just first of all, with your bet size, going along with what you were thinking about the cutoff, calling with two pair and stuff. If that's what I was really trying to do, I might size a little bit larger here. I remember this now. I had read like a split part of this hand. This check raise really, really concerns me here a lot. Now, it is interesting that no one can be free rolling you with, that's why you keep saying the suits matter. So no one can have jack X here of the suit. They can't have a flush draw with a jack in it. However, though, I have to say that your bet here on the turn represents so much jack X that I could see you checking on the flop like jacks, maybe sometimes king jack, maybe sometimes queen jack or something like that, that I feel like this is almost never a bluff here from this guy in the big blind, and he's in the middle blind. And if you're in a situation here where at best you're only chopping, and he can certainly have like ace jack off in a spot like this, and you've got no redraw to improve to anything else. I honestly could see folding here. That was my first initial reaction. I know you block the free rolling suits, but I don't know, man. Like, how much? Because if the big blind calls with ace jack off here and doesn't squeeze, right? You open from the one hole, goes call, and he calls like ace jack off, and maybe he squeezes sometimes with ace jack suited, but he calls with ace jack off. I mean, obviously you've got two jacks in your hand. So what does that leave? That leaves what, like 6 to 8 combos, depending on the suits. There's 8 total combos. There's 2 jacks left, or yeah, 2 jacks left and 4 aces. So there's 8 total combos of ace jack. So maybe 6 combos of ace jack off. What else is he doing this with when your bet on the turn is so jack heavy?
I 100% agree. And I think the reason I keep talking about these suits, I think my suits are terrible. I think because I block the redraw, it weights him a lot more towards an ace jack.
And the other thing too is that even if you didn't block the free roll suits, I'm not well, I'm trying to think about this in my head. Like, I don't know how often somebody check raises with the free roll suit if they think you can have some ace jack. But if you're always betting ace jack here on this suit because of the dynamics, then the fact that you check this flop, if I was in this guy's position, I just might think that you have way more jack X here than ace jack in a 4-way pot. And I might take that and be like, all right, I'm going to start building here on the free roll side of it. But we know he doesn't have that because you've got 2 of the jacks in your hand. I'm very, very concerned here that this guy, I mean, what else would he be making this play with? I mean, I know you say you were like drinking and was drunk, and you usually don't fold like a one-liner to a straight and hold him, but you don't have the nuts. But I'm very, very concerned here.
Yeah, I strongly considered folding. I ended up calling, but honestly, I couldn't. There doesn't seem to be a good justification for calling when I felt like I was free rolling at best, and I couldn't think of a.
Well, you felt like you were chopping at best.
Sorry, I was chopping at best, and I could not think of a logical bluff considering.
The other thing to consider here too, even though he made it look very, very large, is like if the button is as splashy as you think he is, and then he calls behind you. Yeah, like you get more money in the pot if you chop, but then there's more cards that beat you at the end though too. If the guy happens to just have a jack, you know what I mean? So you call. What does the button do?
Button ended up tank folding.
All right, so button folds.
And I know he told us what he folded at the end.
All right, so you can tell us at the end here. So 750 call. So now the pot, we put in what, 1620. So it's 1820 to the river?
That's what I have it at, yep.
1820. All right, so 1820 to the river here.
So river, I think this is the most interesting part of the hand, is the king of hearts.
So the river is the king of hearts. So the final board reads off king of spades, queen of hearts, 10 of spades, turns the 9 of hearts. This one definitely, I mean, I know I'm going to do my best for the podcast people, but I think I know what's coming here because you really need to visualize this one with the distribution of suits on the flop here too. The queen is out there on the flop of hearts, king of spades, queen of hearts, 10 of spades, turns the 9 of hearts. And now the river here is the king of hearts. So it brings in the backdoor flush, but it can't be king X of hearts. It can't be king X of hearts because the king falls on the river. So if it was some sort of pair plus flush draw, it would have to be like 10-9 of hearts because the 9 of hearts is out there. And we're scared that this guy has ace jack when we called here on the turn. I assume, because it's very interesting, you're saying that this guy checks to you on the river?
Yeah, pretty quickly too.
Well, here's my take here. Like I said, like I'm very well might have folded off here on the turn, but this one you have to really get into the weeds here. Like if I'm the big blind and I have ace jack, and I played it this way, and I played it against you in this manner, and I might play it this way in the sense where I call with ace jack off, it gets checked around on the flop. Now you might be like, well, wouldn't you bet the turn? Not necessarily, especially with these whale people like in the field that are just going to bet off with any jack. I very well might go for a check raise, not expecting someone to fold a jack. Well, and our hero in the hand didn't fold a jack, by the way. And now I check the river here. First of all, I don't even know if I would check the river, number one, because I don't know if I would be scared here that you ever have a flush, because the only flush that I would feel like that you would bet and call on the turn with this one-liner out there would be if you had ace jack of hearts, which would have been the nuts check through on the flop, and now you're only going to call with ace jack of hearts to my check raise on the turn when you're rolling on hearts. So I find the flush combination almost like, are you bet calling the check raise on the turn with ace five of hearts, one of the backdoor hands that we thought maybe you would bluff on turn? It just seems bizarre. So I'm not really concerned about front door hearts here. And then, so what about on the boat side though? Like, what boats do you have here? Like, you're checking through kings, queens, and tens on the flop, and then you bet the turn on a one-liner with two people to your left and then call this gigantic check raise? I'm just really trying to get deep in the weeds here, that if I'm the big blind here and you like made some sort of like, when you call on the turn, I think you have a jack. And then if this river comes and I play it like this as a check, I don't know if I can come up with a backdoor heart hand or a boat that you have that I'm credibly scared of. And I might think that you're trying to move me off of a jack as a chop. For those reasons, if I was the big blind and I successfully pulled the check raise with ace jack against you, I don't think I'm checking the river. I don't think I'm checking the river. I want to get value from a jack. I don't think you have a flush. I don't think you have a boat. The way that this hand went down, again, you'd have to really visualize it, but it's just like I'm looking at the board here. I mean, are you bet calling ace five of hearts on the turn here?
No, boat more likely than a flush for sure, I think. Not saying that I definitely have a lot of boats here, but that the board pair I think is because it brings in a flush, it's also more interesting. But the board pair I think is the more.
Are you betting a set on the turn with two people to act out? You have to check the flop and then bet call the turn with a set.
So probably not. But I'm trying to figure out if there's any there's got to be like some little frequency.
There is one hand that I washed over, thank you live chat, which would be jack 10 of hearts here. Yeah. You could have jack 10 of hearts. You could have jack 10 of hearts. But there's a lot of other, that's one specific hand. There's a lot of other hearts. I don't think, so I'm going to shift it to your perspective. I'm just checking and hoping we fucking chop it with the jack. I'm not going to try to move a guy off of ace jack. This is why I very well might fold a turn. But if I'm the big blind here and I have ace jack, I'm betting. What if the guy had come out and bet 800 here at the end?
Snap.
You snap full? What does it change?
Which is why my turn call is like not.
Okay. I was going to say, what does it change though? Because you don't think he's got a boat or a flush as played.
Well, that's the thing. So if he's hand reading, and I labeled this when I sent it in as like multi-way hand reading. Uh-huh. If he's hand reading well, I shouldn't have many boats. I could have some very few flushes, but I have a little bit of each, but barely.
Right. So if you try to move him off of ace jack, I think that would be a spew.
Yeah, he never has a better hand than ace jack.
Oh, he never has a better hand than ace jack.
He never has a better hand than ace jack.
Sure.
What I talk to people that I, my little poker circle that I trust about this hand was like these two competing things of, from his perspective, he never has a better hand than ace jack and he never has boats. So if he folds to a bet here, he's folding range.
Well, he's making an MDF mistake, I guess is what you could say.
And for me, I never have a worse hand than I do in this situation.
You have the bottom of your range.
So if I'm not bluffing this hand, which I think is the best candidate to bluff.
Because you have the jack of hearts in your hand. Right.
I'm never bluffing. And in live poker, should there just be spots where you never bluff?
Well, I broke it down for you in the case where I'm never folding ace jack if I'm the big blind here. I would take a real good look at the board and I would not fold ace jack. the funny thing, again, for those reasons, is why like I would bet to try to get called by a jack here most of the time. Like it's just really hard. It's a very complex type of situation, whether if you're supposed to take jack with a heart and bluff with it sometimes, like is his play to check call better than just to come out and bet? I'm talking about like the actual reality of it, that I would just continue to bet if I was the big blind. So the check here, it's weird. What did you end up doing?
Took me maybe like 5 seconds and I checked back.
And?
He had ace jack off with neither of the suits.
There you go.
Which is not surprising.
So you think that your biggest mistake, I assume, is calling the turn.
I think everything about turn play is bad, and it is impacted by, you know, trying to do something different than I normally do, exploiting a bad opponent on the button.
Now, do you think that you wish you had this back and you should have bluffed the river?
I go back and forth, but I think that trying to get people to fold strong absolute hands in when there's a lot of money in the pot is not a winning strategy in live poker. So I think I'm fine with hoping to chop.
Well, I mean, it's funny because this hand brings up a situation where you said he's making an MDF mistake if he folds, because his best possible hand that he can have here is ace jack as played. But sometimes, though, people will fold in live, because I kind of twist this around at you. Sometimes people will actually fold in live poker, not understanding that, and then getting like scared of the money and getting into a situation where he doesn't beat a flush and he doesn't beat a boat and he can't do the hand reading, even though theoretically maybe the bluff wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? So there's some competing factors here. But I think that we can both agree that probably turn play is just a fold, but I don't have an issue with your check back. I still think the opponent should bet the river, because I think that the river card's almost irrelevant. Like if I never think you have flush draws and never think you have boats, and like close to 95% of your range is jack X as played, and I have ace jack, why would I let you go check and not miss the value at the end? So,
Bart, just last thing, the button had king queen.
The button had king queen and checked it through. Wow.
So my read might have been off.
All right. Thanks a lot for the call. Appreciate it.